Hello everyone and welcome to STEM School. So today we'll be looking at completing the square method, which is a method that you can use to solve a quadratic equation. And I'll explain how to do this method, and I'll go over some exam style questions so you'll know how to approach these questions in the exam. And before we begin, please do remember to like and subscribe to the channel. I'll greatly appreciate that. Alright, so let's get started. So here we have a generic form of a quadratic equation. So we have ax squared plus or minus bx plus or minus c is equal to 0, right? And our objective here is to solve to find two values of x, okay? Now, there are three methods that you should always keep in your head in the exam when you're asked to solve a quadratic. So the first method would be the factorising method, where you put it into single or double brackets. And then the second method is to use the quadratic formula. And then lastly, we have the completing the square method. And I've covered the first two methods here in my previous videos, so be sure to check that video out. So completing the square is the process of writing a quadratic in this form. So say if we had x squared plus 10x minus 15. So we have a quadratic here. Well, completing the square is the process of putting it into this form, x plus p all squared plus q. Okay, so it's this fancy form here. And this is a useful way to actually write a quadratic because it helps you identify the maximum or the minimum value of a function, as you'll see later on in the algebra topic. So that's the first type of question that you could be hit with when you don't have a number in front of the x squared term. So the second type of question that you could get is something like this. We can have 4x squared minus 8x minus 21, right? And we want to complete the square and we want to write it in this form of a x plus p all squared plus q. Okay, so this is where we have a number in front of the x squared term. It's a tad more awkward to deal with, but I'll show you exactly how to do these types of questions. So let's have a go at this exam question then, so that you can see the method of completing the square, alright? So we're going to focus on the first type, which is when the x squared term doesn't have a number in front of it, okay? So this question is saying, express x squared plus 10x minus 15 in the form of x plus p all squared plus q. So this question is telling you to do completing the square because of this format of the question here, right? And then we don't have a quadratic equation as there is no equal sign. We've been given a quadratic expression, okay? So how do we actually complete the square, right? So let's write out the quadratic expression. We have x squared plus 10x minus 15, okay? So the first step when you're actually setting up the solution is to actually focus on this part of the expression, the x squared term and the x term, okay? So what you do is you write the brackets, and then you write the square term, and then you write the number on the end there to the side, okay? And I'll explain why you leave a little bit of a gap there, right? So what we do is, since it's an x squared term here, we put an x as in the front here. And now we focus on the coefficient of the x term here. So we have a positive 10x. What we have to do is half whatever this number is. So we have positive 10, so it will be positive 5. So say if we had positive 6x, we half it and put 3 in the bracket. If we had positive 12x, we half it and put positive 6 in the bracket, okay? Now, we need to account for the number on the end here if we were to multiply out this bracket, okay? So just to a bit of clarity, if we had x plus 5 multiplied by x plus 5, so we're going to use the FOIL method to multiply out the double brackets. We have x squared plus 5x plus 5x plus 25, okay? And then we can tidy it up, so it'll be x squared plus 10x plus 25. Okay, so see this number on the end here, the positive 25. What we want to do is minus whatever this number is, okay? So what we're doing is essentially we are minusing 5 squared. So if it was positive 6 here, we minus 6 squared. If it was positive 10 here, we minus 6 squared, okay? So we're going to minus 5 squared, so we're going to minus the 25 on the end there. Just when you multiply it out, you'll check it, and then we'll get the expression that we began with, okay? So let's continue this. We have x plus 5 all squared. So minus 25 minus 15 is equal to minus 40. Okay, so that's the final answer. But this question didn't actually ask you to find the values of x or anything, because we don't have a quadratic equation. But how would we actually find the values of x if we had it in the first place? So say if we had, you know, x squared plus 10x minus 15 is equal to 0. So we have a quadratic equation here, and we want to find the values of x. But we know from completing the square method that we can express it as x plus 5 all squared minus 40 is equal to 0. Okay, so to find the values of x is just a simple process of rearranging this equation so that we have x on its own side. That's all it is, really. So let's do that. We have x plus 5 all squared is equal to 40. Then we square root both sides, so we have x plus 5 is equal to root 40. Okay, so when you compute that in the calculator, we get x plus 5 is equal to plus or minus 6.32. Okay, you need to be careful when you remember that, because positive, so if we had 6.32 multiplied by 6.32, we'll get 40. If we had minus 6.32 multiplied by minus 6.32, we'll also get 40. So we have the positive and negative version, okay? So what do we have? We have x is equal to minus 5 plus or minus 6.32, okay? So what we can say is that we have two values of x. So let's do the first one. X is equal to minus 5. We'll do the positive first. So minus 5 positive plus 6.32. So what do we get? X is equal to 1.32. So that's one value of x. Now let's find the second value of x. We have x is equal to minus 5 minus 6.32. Okay, and then that computes down to x is equal to minus 11.32. So those are two possible values of x there. So the last question is going to focus on the scenario when we have a number in front of the x squared term. Okay, so that makes it a little bit more awkward to deal with. But let's have a go at this. This question is saying, express 4x squared minus 8x is equal to 21 in the form of a bracket x plus p all squared plus q. And we've also been asked to find the values of x, okay? So we've been asked to complete the square and then rearrange it to have x on its own side, okay? So what we've been given as a quadratic equation is just been given in an awkward form, but we have the x squared term, we have the x term, and then we have the number on the side. So let's firstly write this in a form that you can easily recognize as a quadratic, okay? So we have 4x squared minus 8x minus 21 is equal to 0. So rearrange it to equal to 0. So what we have to do for, in this case, is add an extra step at the beginning. So what we do is we focus on the x squared term and the x term, okay? So just write brackets around it to remind yourself what you're doing. And then what we do is we take a common factor of the number out. So the question will always try and be nice to you so that you can take the full number in front of the x squared term out, so to make it nicer. So we have 4, then we have x squared minus 2x, okay? Then we have minus 21 is equal to 0. So you take a common factor of the 4 out for this bit. And now what we want to do is just to make it easier for you to understand what you're doing and remind yourself that 4 is multiplying whatever you do inside this bracket, okay? So we write the 4, and then we write big brackets, okay? X squared minus 2x, and there we go, and then we write minus 21 is equal to 0, okay? So whatever you do in these square brackets, 4 is going to multiply it, right? So let's set up the solution for completing the square like this. So similar to before, we set up the brackets and we write the square term, and then we have minus 21 on the end there. So what we have to do is, since it's an x squared term, we write the x at the front here, and then we focus on the coefficient of the x term. So we have a minus 2x, we half it and put minus 1 in the end there, okay? So if it was minus 4x, you half it and put minus 2 on the end there, right? But now I've left this gap here because we need to account for the number that's going to be on the end here. So say if we had x minus 1, x minus 1, we can multiply that out to be x squared is minus x plus 1. So that will be x squared minus 2x plus 1. Okay, so this number, the plus 1, we have to minus whatever we have. Okay, so we have plus 1, we're going to minus 1. So we're minusing whatever this number squared, okay? But now we have to remember that 4 is multiplying whatever is going on inside this bracket, okay? So let's do that. So we have 4x minus 1 squared. 4 times minus 1, so we have minus 4 minus 21 is equal to 0. So when you tidy that up, we'll have 4x minus 1 all squared minus 25 is equal to 0. So that's the first step of completing the square done. Then we can move on to finding the values of x. So you just need to remember to put the square bracket in to remind yourself that 4 is multiplying whatever number you're accounting for, because otherwise you can easily make a mistake and just keep the minus 1 here, okay? So let's carry on. If we were to find the values of x, how would we do that? We just rearrange it. So we'll have 4 bracket x minus 1 all squared is equal to 25. Then we can divide by 4, so we have x minus 1 all squared, and that's if you divide that by 4, you get 6.25. Then if you take the square root, you get x minus 1 is equal to plus or minus 2.5. Okay, you have to remember the plus or minus here. So what do we have? We have x is equal to 1 plus or minus 2.5. Okay, so our first value of x is going to be x is equal to 1 plus 2.5, and that will give us x is equal to 3.5. So that's one value of x done. Then number 2 will be x is equal to 1 take away 2.5. Okay, so our second value of x will simply be x is equal to minus 1.5 as our final answer. Okay everyone, I hope this video has helped you tackle both scenarios of completing the square so that you can easily do this for your exams. And join me in my next video as I'll look at algebraic fractions. And as always, please do hit the like button and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next video.